Good afternoon, everyone. Lumber prices, record highs, closures everywhere. Gives you the option of milling your own. I ended up buying this piece of wood lot and field. Looks like this, up into the timber section, or you could drive along and then find your own sawmill if you know where they're located. North Korea, dog owners have to turn in their pets. A substitute for pork. Record floods, lost crops, famine inbound. And if you thought the shrinking GDP was just in the US or North America, a glimpse into the UK. Are you ready for autumn?
News just released states that several VPNs that didn't have a no-log policy revealed the browsing activity and personal information of over 20 million users. Those that care about privacy need a VPN with a strict no-log policy to prevent this. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox and click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green, and you'll see how from my initial service provider I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. Due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield is offering its services for 50% off to help customers in need to protect themselves as they work from home. The link's in the description box below.
Saw this article here about Kim Jong-un in North Korea telling people that had dogs or pets they have to turn them in as a food source for a starving public. And I thought, well, that's a little outrageous, really? And then following on the heels, tapping their own private family food reserve so they're not taken out with pitchforks. Interesting times in North Korea. Had to dig more into it. This is too fanciful and such an unusual story. And off of Business Insider as well as the Daily Mail and a plethora of other Asian publications. Indeed, it seems to be true. Now, the floods are ongoing. They are massive. As massive of the flooding that occurred in China, the same result in North Korea. Clouds don't stop at a border. And with pork and beef almost unheard of as luxuries for ordinary people, dogs are now going to be a substitute as a food source to stave off hunger in the coming months. This is where it's going in countries that are not getting that much food assistance. And looking at the vast floods that you see, there's been so much crop damage there. And the United Nations already reporting that 60% of North Korea's 25 million people are in food shortages, borderline famine already. And the sanctions are on there, and the currency sanctions, and everything else in between. That it's gotten to the point where the family food stash for the leaders of the country, the private food reserve, is now being tapped so he can remain in power. Now, this is where it's gone. The citizens are so hungry they realize there's nothing left to lose. I wonder when it'll come to that in the United States. Now, the thing about the floods here, official, quote-unquote, North Korean media, 1,500 acres of rice fields are flooded and destroyed. You saw those previous images of the guy standing on the side of the river under farm fields. Here's into the cities. And you're telling me 1,500 acres in the whole country. Great one, Kim. Because China just experienced the largest floods in the last 400 years. I guess you have better pumps and water diversion systems than China does. And staying on the unusual, United Kingdom GDP. This takes you back from 1955 until right now. What do you see on the right there? Oh, the largest drop-off in GDP by exponential amounts. How do you think the unemployment and prospects for businesses starting there are? Well, the quarterly consumption, that's what's going to be what's driving all the new spurring, resurging economy across the UK. Red line, off a cliff. Very similar to the United States. But with all the stimulus money, spending was here. Once the stimulus money stops, spending is going to mimic this in the UK. Are you ready for the autumn? Because here it comes. Peak trough comparison, 6.8% for 17 months in the contraction of the financial crisis 2008-9. This is minus 25% in 3 months. Houston, we have a problem. Actually, London. Over to the story of the day, lumber prices, record highs, supply chain screw-ups, or maybe purposeful chessboard moves. The amount of people moving out to the countryside, including myself, this is where I'm living now. They're going to need homes. They're going to need structures. All these people leaving the cities out to the countryside, they need building materials. Now there's a sudden shortage. But what if you have woodlot, like I do? It spills out onto a field in front of the property and looks a little something like this when you're looking at the pasture up into the woodlands to the peak. Now the bottom part of the land you're going to see is pine forest, but as you reach up toward, let's say the last 3/4 of the land up to the peak there, you get into more hardwoods. Now not a lot of them are perfectly straight, and there's a lot I want to keep in there. I do want to limb out a fair bit to get better vantage points and cut a couple trails in there, but there are some pines on the lower section that are quite straight and quite tall. Now that's one option for me to harvest lumber off my own property. Another option, though, is to head up to your local sawmill. And there's 4 right around where I live, but you're going to have to find these guys. You're going to have to talk to them, ask them about the logs, and you might even have to plane the wood yourself, because I see a lot of the guys with the real heavy blades. They're going to leave an incredibly rough surface on that. You'll have to pay more money or do something. But if you know where the local supply chain is in your local area, you can go around the international supply chain for lumber, buy local. And we're going back all the way to 1986 for some of these prices. Look at this. $270, now it's $725. That is a tripling in price. If you can even get it, because I talked to a couple contractors today, they're short getting some lumbers that they need, so they're buying from multiple areas. And because the cuts are different on the wood, when they're stacking 14 tall or whatever, when they get to the top, then it's off because they want to buy everything from the same vendor with the same cut from the same sawmill because it'll all match as they're moving up the sides of a barn or a building or something like this. But when they're buying from 5 or 6 different places, the cuts aren't exactly the same. So when they get to the top, it's off. And then they need to either cut themselves or it looks terrible and they're like, oh, this is not good. So you can mill your own lumber, and I am interested. Anybody at Wood-Mizer, I'm interested in buying the LT15 because I do think that the future is going to have your own mobile sawmill, because if you can produce board feet, I know you have to dry it for a little bit, but there's others that are way ahead of you that are already drying it, so you could substitute, and wood lumber that could be used for building materials could be just as much of a tradable as anything else moving into the future. And we see the same thing that happened with the meatpacking plants, with the vegetable harvesting in California, the milk, the eggs, and everything in between. Now it comes down to wood. Shut down the wood treatment plants, the bug. And even something down to plywood has gone from $15 a sheet to $34 a sheet. Never mind those 4x4 timbers that you see. That's very solid, wanted wood in the background there. This is just plywood sheeting. Can you imagine how much it's going to cost to build something now? 3x higher than it was. So if you're in the process of putting up a pole barn or getting something else in, speed is of the essence, let's say. Because I'll leave you here with the time lapse when I was working on the land a little bit. Things are definitely changing. The rush to the countryside is on. Every piece of property that we looked at probably 30 plus, 32, something like this piece of property. We finally found the right one at the end. It was the last piece of property we looked at because it was too hilly and it was just a lot of things not were the best. But recently, because of the amount of money people are paying for countryside properties, everything's coming on the market, even good slices, but they're going to cost you a bit more. What I like here is there is a little timber forest to use, as well as a couple naturally flowing streams on there. You got some pasture. And thinking about the resources that are around you, what's growing there naturally as a weed that can be eaten, such as stinging nettles. What can you plant? What kind of greenhouses you can put out? Where are you going to put all your structures and everything to keep it safe as you move through? So many things to think about as these unpredictable times are in front of us. You're going to have a lot more people out there in the countryside than anticipated. And the build times are going to be extended because the contractors we talk to, they keep pushing dates back and dates back. Think about building with rock, stone, or something other than wood for right now. I talk more about this on my Adapt 2030 Patreon channel. Climate preparedness for all of us. I'm taking action to get ready. So what are you doing to get ready for these changes? Leave a comment in the description box below. It's a great place to compare information. And I do thank you for watching. Links are in the description box below, and I will see you next time.